Hi, everyone. Ronald Ingram here, live from the Luxor Pyramid, broadcasting on X, YouTube, and many other channels here. Really busy morning as I prepare to rush out for meetings to Tech Alley, Las Vegas, and many important meetings coming up with the convertible note that we've got coming down the pipe, and we have many exciting things to talk to. But first, let me welcome everyone. This morning edition is for the other hemisphere, so we have it earlier in the morning. And just want to welcome everyone. Live long and prosper. And we've got a lot of exciting things going on. First, I want to talk about some of the events that I've had recently, and what we've got, some of the exciting things that we've got coming up. So last week I attended a crypto meeting, which was met some really interesting people and early pioneers from the early days of Bitcoin right through to people launching new projects and educators, Hollywood executives, and many people with lots of interesting projects and experience. And we talked a lot about the what I call the VBZ, the Vegas banking zone, an idea that I have that we've been formulating to open up banking in specific zones in America to support the interstellar division of the Interstellar Bank as well. So we had some very productive meetings and a lot of enthusiasm about this idea of expanding, of opening up banking to make it more accommodative and amenable to innovation, and building on the amazing things that the administration has been doing, and Tim Scott and the Senate Banking Committee and the Clarity Act that's coming forward. But even prior to the Clarity Act, the great direction that was provided through the SEC and the CFTC announcements in March, and then subsequent announcements in April. All of these things converging to create a perfect time to transform banking. As I was walking the dogs this morning, I was thinking about some conversations that I had about this project, and as part of the grant that we received for Neobanx, and of which POCK is part of. I remember we were provided mentors and unsolicited. We were provided, so I had many different people that provided unsolicited mentorship services, and so it was interesting. Sometimes one response was to the whole concept that we're working on was that we should never try to boil the ocean. You may have heard that expression. And to that, my response should have been, we're not trying to boil the ocean. We're setting the world on fire, starting one ocean at a time. More serious, in all seriousness, really, when people say that, what they mean is that I don't understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. It seems really big, and I don't know how it could be done, and so therefore it must not be possible. So it's really kind of that's really what that, if you translating between the lines, really when someone says that about your idea, you should take that as a compliment, because as Peter Diamandis says, and others have said, if your idea doesn't seem impossible, it's not big enough. It's not meaningful enough to the world. And our idea is far from impossible. And it is, turning the inverting the banking system is what we're talking about, right? And supported with breakthroughs in AI that are being instantiated and made real live right now. I'm using right now every day BROK and tools like BROK and SPOCK, the utility token that fuels this new banking system, and NeoScore, which disrupts the entire credit scoring legacy system as it exists today, which is desperately needed because it is fragile, and does not serve humanity in terms of privacy and self-sovereignty. Legacy credit bureaus maintain your information in a black box, essentially, that you have no ownership of. The NeoScore enables people to own their own data, and for that data to be portable, and for you to be aware of changes to your credit score, for good or bad, or to your alternative score, the NeoScore, and so that you can see what's happening and address them proactively, and not be reliant on a third party legacy infrastructure that is over 100 years old. That has been constantly updated, but constant updates is not the same as starting with a clean slate and creating a new system based on the latest technology available, versus cobbling together and trying to make things that were obsolete decades ago, try to keep them relevant. And in many cases, there's of course an ulterior motive as well. The incentive is to create regulations and competitors, legacy credit bureaus don't create regulations. Big banks don't create regulations, but they benefit from high regulatory barriers and moats. And often these larger organizations are staffed by former regulators, and there's kind of a revolving door that goes on. And so they're not really it doesn't really serve them to disrupt themselves. It's actually a good idea for a company that is in a monopolistic situation and it's going to be the only way for monopolies to survive, is if they disrupt themselves before someone else does. But we're disruptors, and we are introducing a credit score that disrupts the legacy, but in a strategic way, so that we are not dependent on the legacy system, and we're not trying to replace the legacy system all in one go. The NeoScore provides additional valuable information to bankers and lenders and employers that value. Employment decisions are big decisions, maybe even bigger than many loan decisions. I once spoke to Tony Hsieh, the founder of Zappos, that was moved their headquarters from California to the downtown Las Vegas area years ago. And a really interesting entrepreneur died in his prime, unfortunately. Very sad. But he was one of the reasons that I was attracted to Vegas, actually, is I wanted to learn. There's not a lot of people that I learn from everybody, but there are the people that let's just say I have Tony Hsieh was on a very, very short list of folks that I was really interested in in their approach to the corporate world and to business. In particular, his fanatical emphasis on radical customer service, that translated specifically into how they would operate their customer service lines, their call centers, where they would encourage their customer service people to spend as much time with a customer as that customer needed, with literally no limits. And so they viewed each interaction as an opportunity to build a relationship, but it was even a little bit more altruistic than that. It was like it was really genuine, and not just a business strategy to extract more value from each interaction. It was genuinely, they wanted their customer service people to be authentic and to have real conversations with people. So that was really interesting. The other thing that I thought was very interesting conceptually, and it was interesting to see this attempted so that I could emulate without the mistakes, if you will. But this idea of holacracy, which people may not have heard of for a while. It was obscure even then, but very few companies were looking at this. But holacracy was this idea of it was based very simply. Now, this simple idea was, and this was I think it's failing, is that it was the documentation speaking to the people that tried to implement this method of organizing of a corporate organization. It was extremely cumbersome in the amount of documentation and instructions, and counterintuitively to go along with this idea, which was based on a very simple notion of self-organizing systems, where rather than forcing people to do what they don't want, nature, and economic systems and businesses are actually they're made from human consciousness, and they're made by humans, and humans interact with them. And the machines that I'm building are based on these principles, these organic, holistic, natural principles, which involve self-organization. So if you allow people to do what they do, you don't need to tell the seed how to grow into a mighty oak. From the tiny seed, a mighty oak grows, and naturally, just with sunlight and carbon dioxide and minerals. And you just think about that. That is kind of magical. If you just stop for a second and think about this strong wood, this huge tree, beautiful, complex, sturdy, able to withstand storms, a source of building materials, a source of fine art and furniture and all the things that this material is used for. And what's it made of, really? It didn't extract. It isn't the minerals. The minerals from the earth. Yeah, they were a small fraction, just like there are a small fraction. Minerals in the human body are a small fraction of our composition. Same thing with the mighty oak. It's mainly based on carbon extracted from the air. So it is created from sunlight and nature and the infinite intelligence embedded in the universe, that is in every living thing. And what is a living thing? Even that's another question that scientists struggle with and have to think very seriously about in the age of artificial intelligence. So anyway, and I had lots of deep discussions about some of these esoteric ideas with one individual in particular at the crypto meeting, and he recommended some material to me that was missing from my library, which is pretty comprehensive. So I was surprised, especially related to Gurdjieff, that I didn't have, that there's any book on the subject that I didn't have, and it was quite actually a pithy one. So and that is very relevant to the ground up philosophical conceptual framework that I use when I'm developing engineering artificial intelligence. So in all of this is inculcated into the design of BROK. But I want to talk also about so Tony Hsieh, first finishing off that thought with Tony Hsieh and holacracy, and that's part of the reason that an individual, it's part of that a small group of people, you often hear me quote that, never doubt the ability of a small group of people to change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And even before that, it's like the initial seed of that idea. You could think of an idea as a seed, and many of the greatest inventors and artists of all time, so they did a tremendous amount of work and research and developed their tools and their instruments, and yet they also would refer to a remembering or discovery almost of new inventions and ideas. Is almost like the ideas and inventions and insights drop in when you're in alignment, and if that's your purpose. And those kind of powerful, true ideas, when they take root in a person, they transform that person, and they transform that community, and that ripples out, and that's how you set the world on fire and boil the oceans one ocean at a time. And it happens. It's we've seen many pivot points throughout history, the Industrial Revolution with machines, and more specifically and easier to imagine, what I call the VisiCalc moment. And recent conversation with the president of a television studio that I'm going to be collaborating with very soon. That's very exciting. Also, how part of this ripple effect, how things align. Right now, we have over 1,000 people, I think, that are regularly tuning in, dialing in, have bought SPOCK, and have been exposed to this idea, and they may, to varying, maybe embedded and involved to varying degrees, and that grows over time. But you often heard me talk about the VisiCalc moment, the spreadsheet moment, where the PC suddenly became relevant, and where before it was thought of as a kind of like pump fun, pure fun for hobbyists, for entertainment, for risque entertainment, for irreverent contrarians to vent their rebellious ideas, and that one of these is a perimeter fringe thing that a lot of people thought would never amount to much. And it was really interesting to talk to this president of this television studio, and when I brought this up, he said he was there at that moment, the VisiCalc moment. I knew, actually, most people think of Excel when they think of spreadsheets, right? But VisiCalc was the original one. He says, "Oh, I remember that moment. I was there." And he said, "I was tasked with at that time in my career, I was tasked with terminating employees, and met with tremendous resistance within large organizations. Executives that would say, 'Don't you dare put that machine on my desk. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to let that computer replace my job.'" Right. And basically, he had a witty way of sharing it, but basically said, "Well, you've replaced yourself, go see the CFO, or go see HR, your pink slip is waiting." Right. So, so many people fired themselves because they were resisting this. There's some things you don't you do what you want to do, right? But there are some things that you need to embrace and then extend and use that to align and amplify your capabilities. And this is one of those moments. Crypto has gone from, and AI as well, has gone from this fringe thing to it very rapidly on the cusp of and entering into the mainstream. And it is here. It's going to be the foundation of banking. And all the BROK can't stop it. The EU can't stop it. The big banks can't stop it. It's the momentum. It's reached that orbital escape velocity, and it is taking off, and it will, right? It will happen. So that's why I'm pretty passionate about this, and I'm aligned with this idea, and if not leading it. And that's what you're participating in. And if you're participating in this project, congratulations, you're very early, even July 24th. That's the launch, right? That's when I start really talking about more publicly and do more marketing about BROK and about SPOCK and Neobanx. And that is still very, very early. But how we're progressing on that, so first, so it's very important to share SPOCK with the people that you love and care about, and so that they're not left behind and this is true. It's not FUD. You don't want your friends and family to be left behind in fiat and have no awareness about what's coming with crypto. And SPOCK is a good, safe way to learn when there are still so many scams out there. 99 out of 100 pump fund projects would fail and after their first day. And we are just still in the early stages of building and growing and gaining momentum, and as fast as we can handle. Really, we have so many opportunities, and we're expanding on that. And one expansion, tangible one, is the stellar note that I talked about. And I wanted to clarify a couple of things on this. So I talked about this on Thursday as well, and a couple of questions came up. So what we're doing here is I don't ever want to, and I haven't spent any SPOCK. Neobanx hasn't spent any SPOCK, and Neobanx holds the treasury, the locked component of the 13% that's locked, that's vesting. That is held by Neobanx, and so, but even as time rolls on, and I could sell SPOCK. I don't want to, because our goal, and it's put out in this this document here. I think I'll put this online. This corporate memorandum. We're doing a raise. It's very, very small in terms of corporate raises for a project like this. But it's significant and it's strategic. So we're doing a $2.5 million raise using a convertible note, and with the conversion. And so a convertible note is basically just a loan. And what we do is to leverage our treasury so that we don't ever have to touch the treasury, is we borrow against it. And actually that's pretty good collateral from a banker's perspective. From my own personal perspective as a banker, I would rather have a liquid, personally, I would rather have, with taking regulation out of it, just from a pure conceptual business banker point of view. If you could have a form of, you always want cash collateral. Cash is king, right? So, but what use is it to, if you have $100,000, why do you borrow? Why would you borrow $100,000 and you have 100? There might be reasons, but it's not a very compelling, value proposition. Maybe you're leveraging that money. Maybe you put 75% cash collateral for say $75,000 cash collateral for a $100,000 loan. Still not that compelling. The only reason you do that is in the case you have an appreciating asset. So for real estate is often good that way. So rather than sell your real estate, especially if you live in your real estate, you don't want to sell it, but it is like and for many people, that's the most tangible piece of collateral that a bank could use as collateral if they wanted to give you a loan. So you can, and even then they don't lend 100% because to allow for fluctuation in the markets, because real estate isn't that liquid. Transferring title, and we're trying to change all this with the National Home Program, which I'll get to in a minute. That's what we're going to do with that. The proposal that we've made to the Senate Banking Committee on that. But a liquid form of collateral is much preferable. So you see where I'm going. This is fairly unique, but I think others will want to use it, and I'm happy to. If you're a founder or an institution or an alternative lender, please feel free to reach out, and I'll share the note, the instrument with you. But basically, so right now locked in Treasury, we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that are locked, right? But we could borrow against that on a 2-year, 3-year term. So the convertible note is has a 3-year term, no principal, no interest, and the interest is a commercial rate, and a normal kind of less than a credit card, but higher than a mortgage, like 10% APR, right? But it's 100%. It's actually over collateralized. So it's 100. You get 100% SPOC as you get collateral. SPOC has collateral that is equal to 100% of the loan, and so this makes sense to borrow against, to rather than liquidate an asset, and that's why I don't want to liquidate any SPOC. Rather than liquidate any and use that capital directly for business expansion and growth and marketing and research and development and all the operational things, rather than use that money, borrow against the SPOC, which is an appreciating, which we forecast to be an appreciating asset, and I have every confidence, and this is why I don't want to sell it, that it's going to 45 cents and then $1 is our goal, right? To from less than half a penny right now. So that's in essence, a convertible note is just a loan that uses that has security. In this case, the collateral is SPOC, and the conversion happens either one of two things happens. Either in the case of default, so if the loan is not repaid in 3 years, and lenders may want to, that's negotiable. The repayment terms and the interest rate are negotiable, but for now, once we close on the first one, that's probably the end of it. And there's a possibility that we do it all in one go, in one transaction. I'm talking to somebody that could do that. The minimum is $50,000, and and you have to be. And I'm not pitching right now. This is you have to be an exempt, because of the securities laws the way they are. You have to be an exempt investor, meaning you have to be sophisticated and meet certain criteria, all of which you would have to sign off on, saying that you understand what you're doing and you're a sophisticated investor, which Brian Armstrong has put out and said it's really kind of an unfair, because part of that is net worth. You have to have a certain level of net worth as one way to qualify as an sophisticated exempt investor. But as Brian Armstrong pointed out, from CEO of Coinbase, that's kind of unfair, isn't it? Really, because it kind of means that the people who are already rich are getting first dibs on the earliest, most profitable, or not most profitable, they're riskiest. They're risky. So that's what the intent is, to protect people from risk, unsophisticated investors from the risk. But that's also where the opportunity is. So I kind of think that people should have their own self-sovereignty. Obviously, I believe everybody should have the right to do what they want with their own money, and we should not, the state shouldn't be able to tell you whether you're sophisticated or not. I think, in most cases, people have the intelligence, and we shouldn't underestimate their intelligence to do what they want to do with their money. So, but anyway, that's the premise behind the exempt rule, and why this is only available even to. But I want people to understand, be just in full transparency, what it is that we're doing. Because somebody asked me and said, "Oh, does that mean that my SPOC is going to be locked?" No, this doesn't affect anybody, right? So why am I think maybe people are confused, like, why am I sharing this? This is, corporate finance in a private company. You don't normally share all the details, except for an announcement, maybe once the deal is done, and you keep all of that information close to your chest. But I want to be really transparent with the community, and so that because part of this purpose of this whole project, and with BROK and everything, is education, right? So so this convertible note, it converts automatically if Neobanx, so Neobanx is borrowing the money, and if Neobanx doesn't pay using the SPOC it has in Treasury, and if it doesn't locked in Treasury, and if it doesn't have the means, or fails to pay, then that means that that SPOC in 3 years converts, or that note converts into, say it's 2.5 million, it converts into 2.5 million in SPOC. Or of course we don't, that's 3 years down the road, right? And we're anticipating, and that would, and the other option is, so that's just, that's not a forward-looking statement, but the other option is, that's our goal. The other option is, and the more likely one, is an IPO. It's becoming easier and easier to do IPOs. And so if there is an IPO event, then that triggers a conversion as well, into at an 85% discount. So that's another incentive for the convertible note holder to lend the money. So they get their 10%, they get to convert into SPOC in 3 years, or if there's an IPO, they get to convert at a discount to the market value of the IPO. And so this is all fairly standard stuff in corporate finance, but it's using the novelty here is using crypto as the collateral, and this actually makes more sense. You see a lot of news right now about Bitcoin mortgages, and that's great. However, the Bitcoin is probably the better asset than the real estate. So you'd almost rather borrow. If that were true, you would, the logical thing to do would be to borrow fiat and buy Bitcoin, and even to buy your real estate cash and borrow and borrow for and use borrowings to acquire Bitcoin, if you believe that Bitcoin is going to be the settlement currency, and is the trend towards adopting Bitcoin as a default settlement currency increases. In El Salvador, it is the default currency of the nation. It's a Bitcoin denominated economy, if you will. And so I think we'll see more of that happening in other countries. There are a number of other countries that have adopted Bitcoin as the primary currency. And now, of course, the US has Bitcoin in treasury. The Swiss do, and always watch what the Swiss do. They're good or bad, they're definitely brilliant bankers. So they have been holding indirectly through large banks Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is already becoming well established in the sovereign treasuries of sovereign nations around the world. And so you can, and more institutional volume. There's literally more cash volume on Bitcoin than there is on Visa and MasterCard combined. And I've got the source data. You can check that in I'll do a search on you could ask BROK. You could search through my I've written about this before. So that's what this Stellar note is, and it is pretty cool innovation that there's a lot of interest in, and you might wonder why anybody would want to be satisfied with a 10 or 12% annual return versus holding the SPOC. Well, it's a convertible note is an instrument that that is more familiar to institutions and institutional investors. And it's one of the very common ways for early stage businesses to get funded. So it just fits in the paradigm. So in this case, why let the old paradigm work for us as we build the new paradigm. Stellar note, and we call it the Stellar note because it's an innovative instrument. And it has as always, it has a meaning. Stellar is actually an acronym for Secured Treasury Enhanced Liquid Loan for Asset-Backed Revenue. So so it means zero dilution. Bottom line, means zero impact to folks. Oh, and also the other big benefit is that the use of the funds, so revenue from BROK and from Neobanx, at least 20% of revenue goes back into buying additional SPOC for treasury, and borrowings. So 20% of the funds that we raise will go back into SPOC. So if we're talking, a normal amount would be 200,000 note, and 20% of that going back right away into making SPOC purchases. It's zero dilution because and that's better than most IPOs. Actually, most companies have unlimited. They don't have a limit on the amount of stock that they can issue. So this is actually, I believe that crypto already is and is evolving into a way for people who are not sophisticated investors by the definition, but just smart people to be able to play with the big boys, even get ahead, because a lot of the institutional investors are too trepidatious to step foot into crypto. And so that creates a window for all the savvy Davids out there who can move more quickly than Goliaths to jump in and find opportunities wisely, and you will have another weapon in your arsenal with BROK. That's another superpower that BROK has, is being able to help you vet and do your due diligence and discovery in looking at new investment opportunities and digital assets and all these things that your financial advisor probably is not well qualified to advise you on. I will say that straight up. I don't think that financial advisors are equipped to advise on. Just ask them if they ask your financial advisor what crypto they hold, and if the answer is zero, they're not equipped, because there's no financial advisor that doesn't have. You can't be a financial advisor if you won't even be hired. I can tell you, I used to work for Merrill Lynch, and that's a standard interview question: is tell me about your own portfolio. What do you have in your portfolio? So ask your financial advisor what they have, what crypto they have in their portfolio. And if you're not satisfied with the answer, get a different financial advisor. And good luck with that. I don't think there are a lot of financial advisors who are equipped. Financial advisors, any of you who are financial advisors listening to this, let's get you certified. Contact me, and then we can do something. Actually, I'm on the Bankers faculty member of the Bankers Institute, which has 1,800 financial institutions in it, and I am educating bankers on AI and crypto and quantum. And there's been discussion about creating a certification program. I think we could look at expediting something like that if there was interest, and that wouldn't dilute my effort on anything else that we're doing, because BROK would be doing most of the. We keep adding to the horsepower of BROK. BROK is this is a good segue, I think, into the use cases for BROK. I just put out a little teaser on one conversation, one use case I had for BROK. So I've already said how BROK is very well equipped to evaluate and investigate digital assets, any kind of assets, all the public records that are made available on stocks, on bonds, on banks, on anything that's investable, including crypto. And so you could use that. It's not to replace financial advice. I say not to, meaning that it's not certified, and so therefore it would be a violation to claim BROK as a financial advisor. There's actually a certification for that, and AI is not able to be certified at this time to be a lawyer or an accountant or a financial advisor or a doctor. But we all know that AI is providing some very useful contributions already, and in all of those fields that I mentioned. And BROK will be equipped especially well for any domain relating to finance, including the trading, traditional banking, estate planning, taxes. I think I told everyone the story. Maybe I'll tell it again. I've already used BROK on my taxes. There was a huge discrepancy. I had a very poor accountant, and I won't mention his name, but it was egregious mistake, if it was a mistake at all, if it wasn't intentional, and left me with a massive tax liability incorrectly. So you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, well, not hundreds of thousands, but over $100,000, and worked with multiple firms, high-end accounting firms, who are basically following the instructions of one lead accountant, like a CFO type, would be a type of person that would manage multiple firms, right? But if your CFO is bad, if your personal accountant is bad, if your personal financial advisor is bad, and they're managing other resources, it's like all that money is wasted because it's being misdirected, right? And you have to be very careful. And this is one of the really beautiful things about BROK, is that it doesn't have an ego or an agenda to go enrich itself above yourself, or to make you dependent upon it, or to obfuscate or hide things or hide mistakes. Or sometimes I think I've seen people that have executives that have worked for me and gone bad. I think it was because they made mistakes and they hid those mistakes, and those mistakes compounded, and then they just started digging themselves a deeper and deeper hole, and would get more and more desperate, and do desperate things to get out of that hole without ever. And then the problem becomes too big to admit. You're never going to get to that place with an AI. AI. There have been instances where an AI does sugarcoat things. We've seen that. BROK does not. BROK is designed and programmed to be very direct. It may over-explain things sometimes, but it will not sugarcoat things. It'll give you facts, and if it makes a mistake, it's unlikely to make a mistake first, because what it would do is it would tell you truthfully that there's a gap in maybe in its information, or it would give you this. Actually, it's hard to imagine a gap, like even in it. And I think that's why some people think that AI sugarcoats things, and sometimes it does, but sometimes it may not be. Sometimes it may just be searching for the best answer, and sometimes the best answer is, because there's always an answer for every question. It may not be, and it's often wrong to say whether it's the right answer or the wrong answer, because there's a degree. Sometimes there's degrees of accuracy, right? I'll direct you back to the notion of quadrivalent logic that I talk about. So, which is encompasses binary logic, but their binary logic is a subset of quadrivalent logic. Quadrivalent logic is a big circle, and binary logic is a tiny little circle. And so within this little universe of binary logic, you can say something is true or false, and that would be the fact. That would be a logical fact in the binary logic world. But that we are deceiving ourselves if we think that we live in a binary universe where zeros and ones can describe everything. This is why quantum computers are such a huge breakthrough, because they go beyond this binary logic to quadrivalent logic, and even beyond quadrivalent logic. But quadrivalent logic is more inclusive of reality. And so think of, so this is binary logic. Quadrivalent logic is vastly larger. And I have the math for all of this as well in Ingram quantum objectivism. So, but to the use cases. So, and continuing on the use cases. So BROK is great because it has access to more information than the smartest advisor in any one of the domains that I indicated. It's been programmed to speak factually, and I think the user agreement, which I'm finalizing, is going to be almost like along the lines of a sacred oath, because I go back to my roots in the origins of banking, and where banking really was formed by the closest thing to modern banking, and was created or instantiated by the Knights Templar, and that story, and I've written articles about it, to enable pilgrims to traverse the desert safely without having to carry around all of their treasures on their person and get mugged. And the core tenets of banking are transacting And so they developed a note, basically. It's just, it was developed, just wrote the assets and wrote the information about the assets of the individual on a note, on kind of a receipt, right? So you have these receipts of treasures that you've deposited with the Templars in their vaults within their fortresses, guarded by the most fierce warriors in the world. And so you've got your instrument for transacting, and because you can use this note as a means for transacting, for trade. You've got trust, which is the validity behind the note. And just like the US dollar is backed by no asset, really, it's backed only by trust. There's no asset. There's no gold standard anymore, right? It's backed by the might of the military, basically. Nations are unlikely to mess with the US. So the US is the most powerful default fiat currency in the world because of its economic power and its military power. So military and money go together, just like gaming and money go together too. Hence the Vegas banking zone idea of Monaco West. But so I envision a user's agreement where basically BROK is it gives you an oath, basically promises that it will honor your privacy, security, and self-sovereignty above all else within the law. See, is that guardrail so that you don't break the law, and so that we don't get into trouble and you don't get into trouble. So keeping it within the law. And BROK is able to do that pretty well because BROK can monitor all the laws in whichever jurisdiction that you're in, and whichever jurisdiction you may be doing business in, which is almost an impossible task. If you're not a federally chartered bank in the US, if you're like a private lending company in the US, you have to follow the law, and each state has its own law in the US. So it's almost like dealing with 50 nations, not states, right? Every single state is like its own nation for a small finance company. I hope to change that by opening up banking, making it available through the interstellar bank, outside of, above and beyond any terrestrial jurisdiction. So it's not so that accounts and transactions are not domiciled in the US. They're domiciled somewhere else in space, literally. And I'll get into all the technical details have been worked out on that, and I will share what can and should be shared at a later date. But so this is a lot of time talking about this, but the trust element is pretty important to me personally. And maybe you haven't had a bad experience yet. I will save you the pain. Maybe that I experienced it so that you don't have to. So if you have a human CFO or accountant that you use, you'll be able to check them. So back to my story, had this egregious error that would have cost me a ton of money. Took me 2 years pre-AI to figure it out. Then with BROK, took me 5 minutes, got the answer to the penny, and there was a whole funny story about the process, but at the end, it was like an accountant that at least had my back and was trying to do the best for me within his profession or within the law. Found that instead of having a liability, I actually had a credit coming back to me, a pretty substantial one, but didn't have confidence in his number. So I ran all the paperwork, the hundreds of pages of paperwork, over 100 pages anyway, maybe 200, between 100 and 200. And within 5 minutes, got exactly what the refund amount should have been, and all the other calculations about what had been paid and what hadn't been paid, and all kinds of ancillary documents. But so yeah, probably closer to 200 pages all in all. 5 minutes, uploaded all the documents via PDF, got the answer, got the rationale, got the changes, and jumped in my car, went to meet the accountant, and the accountant said, "Hey, Ron, good news. I've made a mistake, and actually the numbers are even better than we thought. And here's the number," and gave me the number, and then it matched the number that BROK had just given me 5 minutes before, or half an hour before, to the penny. So that's just it's not a promise. That's just a literal, actual use case that I've already experienced with BROK. So and you can trust that, right? And especially with the additional, and I would recommend that if you have large, complicated taxes, you do that. Use BROK to keep your accountant honest, keep your CFO honest, check their work. They may not like it, but it's from one business person to another. I would highly encourage you to always check the work at least. So instead of doing, and maybe that's the way to use AI for you, rather than having an accountant check your AI's work. Let your accountant do it, keep the costs down, and have your AI check it. And then maybe in the next 12 or 18 months, regulations are going to change, and AI will be able to be certified to do some of the things that required certain recognized credentials to be certified in the past. So so imagine all of this power in the hands of a vet. That was one idea that came out of some conversations. And what the main thing that came out of conversations is that people are really, really excited about BROK. It might be actually the biggest part. People that don't get SPOCK yet, that's fine. SPOCK is going to benefit. SPOCK is the fuel that runs all of this. And so they don't need to understand SPOCK, all of them. But if they get BROK, BROK is going to be paid for with SPOCK, and the subscription amount will be payable it will be priced in fiat, but it'll be settled in SPOCK. So if you're paying, and if you're using SPOCK to pay for something, which you'd be better off to use fiat and hold on to your SPOCK, the price would go down relative to SPOCK. So that is what. And there are many other use cases. I wanted to spend more time in the use case, but I'm already getting close to the end of the hour. But imagine other use cases that are brought to me in customer discovery. A woman who has a business for artists, to help artists monetize their skills, essentially, really simplifying her really interesting business that uses technology and humans collaborating to create art for events at scale. But a lot of, they still need business advice, right? So BROK could be bundled into a lot of these different business opportunities to help them accomplish their goals within whichever framework it is. BROK includes the Ingram evaluation matrix, and the number one of that, the four categories are strategic fit, feasibility, financial impact, and risk. Strategic fit revolves around you as an individual, as an entity, your personality, your mission, your vision, your goals, your aspirations. As an entity, as a larger organization, it revolves around culture. Culture is the personality of a corporation. Same thing though, you need to know who and what you want and who you are, right? And so there are actually some soft tools built into BROK called the Enneagram, the Ingram Enneagram in particular, the Enneagram, which is based on the work of deep research that I did into Gurdjieff. Riso Hudson is the corporate version for, it's like Myers-Briggs, DISC, personality typing, but way beyond. We won't get into that. We get into that another time, but it's very advanced, but also simple, and is also a tool for personal development as well. But regardless of the personal development side, you have to know where you are in your development in order to understand what you want, and therefore it helps you, make sure that you're going in the right direction and have the right numbers, have the right financial goals. Are they too small or too large, or all the things that a good financial advisor should do? The thing that separates good financial advisors and bad financial advisors is they, as a baseline, they have to have knowledge. So if they don't have the deep subject matter expertise, they aren't going to be very effective. But the second thing is, that knowledge isn't very useful if it's not intended for your best interest and used to your best interest, which requires a deep understanding of you, right? So financial advisors, they may have 100 clients, and 2 or 20, somewhere between 2% and 10% of their total portfolio will represent 80% of their business. And so who gets all the effort? So they will get to know that small segment deeply. I know this from experience in my training as a private banker and as a commercial banker, that everybody knows, and banks know that 20% or 2% of their customers, or not 20%, 10%, between 2 and 10% of their customers generate the vast majority of their revenue. And so that's where they are directed to focus their effort there, right? As you would expect. BROK's not limited by time, so he can get to know your individual needs, right? So now imagine agents, models, actors, musicians, and all the troubles they have with agents who manage all the certified experts usually. But that first point, you need BROK by your side if not to replace that person, to hold that person accountable, or to have that person. So most talent, it would be their dream to find a good agent, and a good agent, find any agent. And a lot of companies prey on that, and they charge you for acting classes and modeling classes, and you pay for your portfolio, and you pay for your headshots, and all this cottage industry around marketing yourself that you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars without ever making a penny, and finally just abandon it and having burned through your resources to chase a dream. BROK at your side could help you with all that. So I've talked in these meetings lately. I've been meeting Hollywood types and talent, and this woman who working with painters. They are desperately need, and this is a burning need, not a desperate need, because they don't even know that there's such a thing as possible. But this is the need that BROK is going to fill for these people out of the gate, and it's already multiplied my effort. And so then the whole narrative about losing jobs being replaced by AI, it's completely inverted. And you talk about amplifying individuals so the people that embrace the technology, they're not going to need a job or want a job in many cases. They're going to be able to follow their passion and monetize it. They're going to be able to follow their dreams and monetize them in practical ways, and do what they really want to do, and commercialize their real interests, and do it in a wise way, like not quitting and going, I'm going to start this new thing. Sometimes that's right for some people. There's theories around motivation that some people think that that's a good way to go. I myself am always a little bit more methodical in my choices when possible. And also having contingency plans. So when life surprises you, you have backup plans, and you and in many cases, what turns out to be a surprise and something that you didn't want turns out to be the best thing that could have happened to you. And then you all of a sudden it's like, wow, now I have to use BROK, right? And then if you have BROK in your back pocket, you're not starting at zero. You've already been exploring things, and it's the more I talk to people about BROK, the more excited I get, and the more interest there is from people. So final things. If you buy SPOC, then and don't sell it, you will get. I put a thing on the a little yesterday. I posted something. So we're going to put a program together. It's together really. So but for right now, just if you buy SPOC, don't sell it, and take a screenshot of what you got. And on July 24th, if you bought SPOC and are holding SPOC, and there's some rules, but if you do that today, you'll be well ahead of the game, and you'll get you'll get BROK, access to BROK for free, unlimited. Okay, so do that. And if y'all want to, let's just do one final thing here. Morphogenetic field. I want to do this every time. So let's get your wallet out and buy some SPOC for the community. So an amount that you want to hold. If you don't hold any SPOC yet, this is your way right now to get some and lock it in and get free access to BROK as well. So go to your wallet. I'm going to do this right along with you, and find my Genius token. We're going to buy an amount of SPOC, POCK, and this is investment activism, not advice, right? So you're helping the community, you're helping this mission to invert banking. I think of it as a mission, as activism. I'm not saying what is going to happen or isn't going to happen, right? So anyway, let's just do this. So I am going to buy an amount of POCK that begins with a 5, so that we know that we have that you're participating in the morphogenetic field. Then I'll be able to see any transactions that began with a 5. I'll know that. And so I think, what did I just buy here? 100 and yeah, so $150. That would be 5,000, 58,000 or so SPOC, and the number's fluctuating right now. Or $15, that would be, that would be an amount of POCK. That would be amount 500 and that'd be 5,885 POCK or thereabouts, right? So buy it. So $15, $150, whatever amount you want to put in, just so we can see that you were participating in this little experiment that we do. That would be great, and see if we can, because as powerful as one individual is, when we join together in a mission, we're unstoppable. So live long and prosper, everyone. There's a whole bunch of things that I didn't cover today that I wanted to. So ask questions, and that will help form the agenda for the next SPOC talk, which is likely Thursday at 6 p.m. So thank you, everyone. Live long and prosper.